Hi everyone, welcome back to Teaching Triumph, and in this video I want to share with you what I love about teaching. Now these are in no particular order. I did not rank these. These are more of a stream of thought, like the main things that come to my mind when I think about what I love about the work that I do. So the first thing that comes to mind is just planning and designing. I don't think this aspect of the job gets a lot of love and it doesn't get a lot of appreciation, but I really love to just think about the problem of learning, like problematizing what learning is or how learning happens and how to make it happen in a group of students. I really enjoy grappling with that problem. And the place where you're usually really thinking through this problem is when you're planning your lessons and when you're designing instruction. And when I say design, I'm really thinking about what the tasks are that we create for students, what do they look like, how engaging are they, how relevant they are, and do they get at whatever the primary objective was that you have for your students to walk away with from that task. I love all of those things. I think it's just such a fun, complicated, but really enjoyable exercise. And then there's also the less complicated aspects of this planning and design where you have to make fun choices about what you want your slides to look like if you're using slides in a lesson, what you want your room to look like, what kind of activities you want to design that will allow your students to move around, to interact with one another, and whether or not those types of activities are actually aligned to what it is that you're trying to get them to learn. All of that is just super fun and engaging for me, and I just love sitting by myself, struggling through these problems, thinking through these problems, doing some research, creating something, and then actually rolling it out and putting it in front of kids and see what actually happens. All of that I really enjoy doing, and I think it's really sad when this aspect of teaching is taken away from some teachers because we're choosing to use a scripted curriculum and teachers are being asked to stick to it to the T. I feel that really takes away from the creativity, the problem-solving nature of the work. And I'm very grateful that in my teaching career, I haven't been in a position where I have to let that go. That as a teacher, I still have that option of the autonomy to modify it, to tweak it, to meet the needs of the students, but also to get at the learning in potentially better ways. Now, the second thing that comes to mind when I think about what I love about teaching is I think I really enjoy the use of technology these days. And this is obviously a little bit more recent in the past 15, 20 years, but I really enjoy the options that are available to us to teach things in so many different ways because technology just opens up so many ways of teaching something or showing something or having students engaging in simulations, even games. And I really do enjoy exploring new tools or new apps or a new teacher resource website that has some cool activities or tasks and things that align to what I'm trying to teach. Recently, with the advent of AI and ChatGPT and Magic Schools, if you don't know Magic Schools, check out Magic Schools. I have really enjoyed these tools because I feel like they really help me create better lessons. They have freed up a lot of the cognitive space for me to think more individually about students because a lot of these tools take away some of that clerical data entry type of work. They make it a lot faster and a lot easier, and I really enjoy that. Some of the apps that I regularly use these days are definitely ChatGPT for a lot of my unit planning, lesson planning, a lot of my differentiation, rubric creation for sure. I use quizzes a lot, especially their mastery peak mode that they have recently introduced. Students I find really like it. It's very engaging, and it gives you a lot of those repeated at-bats and helps students remember content, especially if you're focusing on vocabulary that often depend on rote kind of learning. Apps like Quizzes and Kahoot are really fun and engaging, and kids like them. Another app I've used, especially when it comes to communicating with students and students who struggle with reading and writing, and you still have to give them feedback, is Mote, M-O-T-E. None of this is sponsored, by the way, but I find Mote was really useful because it allowed you to have a voice note in a Google Doc. It automatically pops up in a Google comment. And when you're commenting on a document or a piece of text, you can voice record a note. And even if students don't have Mote or they're not signed up or anything like that, it creates a link. And on that link, they can literally listen to you talk to them and explain what it is you're trying to explain about a particular section of their essay where you were giving them feedback. I turned to this because for a lot of my students who are learning how to write, who are really struggling with reading, leaving them written feedback is really, if you think about it, is of no use, because if they're having a hard time reading to begin with and comprehending to begin with, your written feedback is more reading. So that wouldn't work. So this was such a big obstacle for a lot of my students, because I would leave extensive feedback and they're not able to really understand the feedback because they might be experiencing learning issues that prevent them from being able to successfully read. So tools like voice typing in Google Docs, and then tools like Mote that allow them to hear the feedback, it's just game changing. It's so great. And it's also fun. Like I said, I really enjoy using these tools. I think they're a lot of fun. And the next thing that I love about teaching is just the freedom and creativity. And I feel like I've kind of touched upon this a little bit when I was talking about instructional planning and design, but maybe I didn't speak as much about the freedom, is because I know for some teachers, the experience is different. Many teachers don't say they have the freedom or the creative license in a lot of cases. I, in my career of 15 years, have always felt that I've had the creative license and the freedom to try things out. It has to do with the schools I was in or the principals that I was working under. We do have pacing calendars and scopes and sequences. We kind of have these things mapped out that tell us what to teach, when to teach. We have deadlines to finish particular learning units, modules, or whatnot. We all have those deadlines. So sometimes it does feel that you don't have a lot of leeway to like do other things. But in different environments, you do have some flexibility. And especially if you've been an experienced teacher and you've proven yourself, you get to have and enjoy more of that freedom, which I really love. Recently, in the last unit that I taught on the progressive era to my 8th graders, we decided to take a couple of weeks and have a project-based learning approach where they were going to learn about the progressive era, its achievements, and some of the pitfalls that came during that time period by designing a game. And they designed board games. We got a bunch of cardboard. It was the holiday time, so a lot of people had boxes they donated, and it was just a lot of fun. Students worked in groups. They figured out directions to the game. They modeled the games after other well-known games. They created game pieces, question cards, answer cards, trap spaces, all types of stuff. We had like mini Monopoly versions. We had Candyland versions of games, and the games looked so good. Kids worked so hard making them look appealing and fun to play with. At the end of the project, we then spent a period playing everybody's game, where I had a group rotation going on, where one person from each group stayed at the table while everybody else left and moved on to the next table, and they played that game, and the person who stayed behind explained the game to the next group that was coming to them. And that way we got to try out 5 or 6 other games that were in the room that people created, and it was so much fun. So I really enjoy freedom like that, to be able to say, like, you know what, we're gonna learn this content or this topic in a slightly different way, and this is the approach we're going to use. And I just really enjoy the privilege of not being forced to do certain things or teach certain things in certain ways, and still having the flexibility of having different types of lessons for different topics, that sort of creative license and freedom to teach in the way that I feel could be refreshing or effective for my students. Now, the next one might be obvious for a lot of people, but one of the things I really enjoy about teaching is just talking to the kids and learning about them. I teach middle schools. I've only taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I have taught all 3 grades, and the kids are a lot of fun. They have cool things to say, funny ideas. They're so funny. They say the craziest stuff. They do anything for you because so many of them want to please you. And the middle school years are definitely tough and unique. They have their own unique challenges. But one of the coolest things about the middle school years is that you really see the difference from year to year in the students' personality, as well as obviously they're growing bigger and taller and stuff like that is happening before your very eyes. But you really see them transform from year to year. And I just find that aspect of just human development so fascinating and interesting. And I also love learning about them, just hearing them talk about themselves or their lives or their interests or their preferences, or learning how to talk about themselves, their lives, and their preferences. I think all of that is just really, really interesting. And related to that, I don't think many teachers perhaps appreciate or think about this, but I also really enjoy talking to teachers. I really enjoy being a thought partner for teachers, and teachers are some of the most interesting people. Just like the students, you have so many different personalities, so many personal histories. There are some remarkable teachers with remarkable stories and talents. So many teachers have so many talents besides, let's say, teaching, that it blows my mind. So I forgot what number I'm on at this point, but another thing I love about teaching is how spontaneous it can be. Now, obviously, teachers, all teachers would tell you they have to be strategic, they have to be intentional, they have to put a lot of thought into what they're going to do, what they're going to teach, how they're going to teach. But teaching can also be really spontaneous. Even with all of that planning, crazy things can happen on a given day that you don't expect. And you just have to be willing to go along with it. And you have to be flexible enough to just roll with the punches. You could be taking the test and there's a fire drill. You could be having a really fun lesson and a child got sick in the back of the room. You could be having a terrible lesson and some student who has never engaged before all of a sudden is interested in this one lesson that you thought was boring, and it just raises everybody's spirits. So many cool and sometimes even disruptive things can happen during teaching that if you enjoy spontaneity, if you enjoy a little bit of a surprise, and again, that creativity, it comes and strings through everything, you would enjoy teaching. And sometimes the spontaneity or the unpredictable nature of some of the things that happen at work can be disheartening or disruptive in a negative way. But a lot of times it's something that keeps you going also. Because as they say in teaching all the time, there's never a dull day and no 2 days are ever the same. Every day is completely different. And no matter how much you plan, no matter how well you prepare yourself, anything can happen. So you just have to have this positive mindset around the spontaneous nature of our work. I enjoy it more than I dislike it. And this, I think, is the last one for now. Maybe I'll make another video, but this last thing that I love about teaching so much is that it's challenging. It's challenging not in a way that sometimes people just throw the word around like, oh, I like to do hard things. But teaching is challenging in a very individualized and a special way. It's somehow always the appropriate amount of challenging that is just right for your growth and what you need. And this relates to the spontaneity feature of teaching also. But a lot of times in teaching, you're pushed to do things that you never thought you could do and you never thought you wanted to do. This has happened to me so many times in my teaching career. And in the beginning, you might be stressed about that because you're being asked to do something new or something completely different. Like you were supposed to be teaching this subject, but all of a sudden on day 2 of your teaching, you realize you're teaching a different subject. All of that can be really stressful, but almost always I hear teachers reflect on these types of experiences and say that they're glad they did it. And that's because in the end, they've always just grown tremendously as a result. Like, for example, I had to teach coding 1 year. Coding, like I don't know nothing about coding, and I had to teach it 1 year. It was a special program. There was a grant. I got voluntold to do it, and I obviously said yes to it. And it was one of the coolest things I've ever done. I learned this program called Scratch, and it turned out that anybody could really pick it up and teach coding. That was awesome. My students made games, stories, and all sorts of stuff. There are so many examples like this, and so many teachers have experienced this. But I personally really love this about teaching, that any given year, there can be a completely weird, crazy opportunity that someone put your name in the hat for. You got called on that and you answered the call and you're just like, fine, I'll try it. If I have to do it, I'll do it. And then it turns out it's one of the best things you did. So those are just some of the things that I love about teaching. Let me know what you love about teaching, and I'll see you in the next one.